Hello guys, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be talking about something that we all experience when we post our work online, whether we're artists or writers or musicians or anything, and that is negative comments. And it's inevitable that as you get more popular online and your viewership increases, you will get more negative comments. It's just proportionate because as you get more people who like your work, you will get more people who don't like your work. So how do you deal with it? Well, firstly, you have to consider which comments are intended to be helpful to you and which are not. So it's very important not to just blanket dismiss all of these comments as just trolls, because there is a huge difference between constructive criticism and just negative comments for the sake of negativity. And I'm saying a lot of this from my own experience as per usual, because as you can probably tell, when I was younger, I didn't deal with things very well online, and whenever I got criticism of any kind, I didn't react well to it. I would say all the wrong things and just insist that I couldn't do any better and their comments weren't helping me and so on and so forth, and so I'm kind of drawing a lot of that experience into what I'm saying here. So you guys are probably better at dealing with this kind of stuff than I have been in the past, but just in case it helps you, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So basically you don't want to just look at all of these comments all together, lump them into one pile and say, well, these are just negative and I don't need them. You need to look at them closely and examine them and consider which is intended to help you and which is not. It's usually pretty easy to pinpoint comments that are intended just to get a reaction rather than to give you advice. So if they're being abusive, if they're just saying something about your work that they don't like and then not finishing it off with any advice, then that's pretty much guaranteed to be something that was just meant to get a rise out of you and to not actually help you in any way. So for example, if somebody messages you saying, I hate your art, that doesn't actually tell you anything about your art, it just tells you about them and their opinions, and that's not doing anyone any good. It's just for their own purpose. That comment was sent for them, for their entertainment, because they want a reaction from you. So in that case, don't give them the satisfaction of the reaction, just delete it and block them and move on. And similarly, if you find, that's a really hard word to say, if you find a comment about you that was not addressed to you, it's pretty much safe to say that was also not intended to help you, or they would have said it to you. That should be taken with a heavy pinch of salt. If this person is saying to their friends or whoever, this artist is really bad at X, Y, and Z, but they're not actually saying it to the artist, how is the artist ever going to know that they need to improve on that? So there's no real intention to do good in those kinds of comments. It's fair to say they're not really relevant to you and you can probably disregard them. But on the other end of the scale, you have constructive criticism. Now, this can sometimes seem harsh because it just depends on the way that people word it. Some people are very gentle with their criticism and others are quite harsh. And initially when I was younger, I didn't like dealing with harsh criticism. And I thought it was quite rude, but now I see, of course, there is value in that kind of comment. You just have to disregard the fact that they may have sounded a little bit harsh while they were saying it. Because always remember to never take criticism personally, because this person isn't insulting you as a person, even if they're trying to. They don't know you, you're just a person on the internet. So don't take it personally, because all they can see of you is your work. They're not seeing you, and yeah, just separate yourself from your artwork. I know it's really hard because a lot of us put our heart and soul into our work and it can be quite difficult to separate the two. But yeah, just look at it objectively, separate yourself from your artwork and don't take those comments personally. So back to the subject of constructive criticism, those kinds of comments can initially seem quite harsh, but they come from a good place. These people are intending to help you. They've been watching your work and they've seen what you need to improve on and they want you to get better. And so you need to take a step back and really look at your work and consider, is this comment correct? Is it relevant? And that's the key thing you've got to ask yourself when you receive any kind of negative comment. Think, is it helpful or is it inspiring? And if it's not either of those, then it's not really of any value to you, because negativity for the sake of negativity is just pointless. So say if you receive a lot of comments that say you have same face syndrome, and I will freely admit I've had a lot of those because I for a very long time had an issue of drawing the same face from the same angle on every character. So thank you to the people who pointed out to me, you need to draw some different faces, because now I do a lot more studies and so on. It's still a work in progress. I know I still have a long way to go because I got into such a bad habit of drawing the same face on every single character. So it's kind of muscle memory at this point to keep drawing the same features. but I'm working on it, and if I hadn't had those people saying to me video after video, you're still doing same face syndrome, I might not have got out of it as quickly as I did. And so those kinds of comments are valuable to you. You have to take them on. Sometimes it can be hard to decipher which comments are statements and facts and which ones are opinions, because obviously there are always going to be people who have a personal opinion on your work, and so at that point you have to take a long look at your own work and consider, do I want to change my artwork to appeal more to this kind of taste, or am I happy with it as it is? So personally for me, I decided that I would rather have, if two people looked at my artwork, I'd rather have one person say they loved it and one person say, not really for me, it's kind of ugly, than for two people to look at it and go, and forget it 5 minutes later. And the price to pay for that is that some people think it's kind of ugly, and I don't mind that because I don't really set out to draw cutesy things, but it's all personal preference, it's all down to you and where you're taking your own artwork. And again, that's kind of a subject that's drifted off because I have got a whole video about art styles without shamelessly plugging. But that's something you've got to consider for yourself when you get comments that are based more on opinion than fact. You've got to decide how relevant that is to your work, and that's a very personal thing, so I can't really advise all that much, but again, something you kind of learn as you grow, as you develop as an artist and become more comfortable in who you are and what you draw. Now, an important thing to remember is that, like I said, it's all down to perspective. People are allowed to not like your work. That's a fact, because it would be a very boring world if we all like the same things. Some people are not going to like your work, just as you are allowed to not like some work. There is some art styles that I don't like, so I can't exactly say it's not fair for people to dislike my work. And so because people's tastes change so much, there are always going to be people who don't like your work, and the only way to avoid people telling you they don't like your work is to not post it online. And in this video I am specifically talking about posting your art online, by the way, just as a heads up. I'm not talking about criticism in terms of like portfolio reviews or art teachers or anything like that. I'm talking specifically about posting your art online. Another important thing to note in terms of talking of art styles: if you ever find yourself responding to a criticism with, oh, it's just my style, you really shouldn't get into that habit, because your art style is not meant to be restrictive, it's not meant to be a limit, it's not meant to be a box that you can't get out of. Your art style is your personal way of portraying your work to the world, it's your use of colour and lines and composition and so many other things rolled into one. But if you ever find yourself using your art style as a shield to protect you from negative feedback, then you really need to step back and take a look at your style and reconsider it. Your art style should never be an excuse for poor quality art, so always bear that in mind. I know it sounds harsh, but I did find myself doing this again when I was younger, saying it's just my style when people said negative things, and you've got to work on that, because your style should allow for flexibility and freedom, and if it's restricting you and you're finding yourself making excuses, I would say that's less a style and more just a problem. So definitely something to consider in terms of that if you're getting comments like that. So just remember, when you receive negative feedback, that the most important thing is to consider whether or not this feedback comes from a place that's intended to help you or a place that's intended to hurt you. And then from there you can decide what path you want to take with it. And if you're just getting negative comments that are not very helpful at all and they're from people who just want to be negative, then just delete them because they are no use to anyone. So I think that is pretty much everything, and that's all my thoughts on the subject anyway. So I really hope this video was useful to you. I've been kind of branching more into doing these kind of rambly videos lately, and like I've said, I'm not an expert in a lot of things, I'm just rambling about the things that I have experience of, and so I hope they're useful to you in some way. I hope to do more in the future. So I think that's pretty much it for my thoughts on this subject. If anyone's curious about the drawing, this is a commission piece of a steampunk space pirate. He's also an incubus, so yeah, that was a lot of fun to draw. My entire commission queue right now is just fantasy men, and I love it. My commissioners know my brand. So thank you as always for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!